how to. Courtesy of WesBank, and Rudolph is in studio. Still listening to Metro FM is where you at. It's 11:40. Rudolph, welcome back to the front row. Thank you so much for your time.
Good morning. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Bundang. I must say I saw photos of you at the July the weekend, and you looked lovely.
Thank you. Now, Rudolph, let's get straight into it. Today's theme is how to get, car finance. Earlier on, I said to my listeners, you've shopped, you found the car you like, you've double-clicked that you can afford the car. Your next step is, of course, to apply for car finance. And if it's your first time applying, this is when you probably will need a little help from WesBank on what you should do next. So, Rudolph, I found the car, right, that I want to buy. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us what are the best ways to apply for car finance?
The best ways to apply for car finance is actually quite easy. If you go to a dealership, every dealership or every reputable dealership will have a finance and insurance manager. Now, this person is specially trained and qualified, almost like a financial advisor that just specializes in car finance, who will then assist you to submit your application. He will give you all of the advice that you need based on a thorough and needs analysis on you as an individual or your position, your financial position. And everything is electronic nowadays. So you fill in one application electronically, which gets submitted to all of the banks. If you so wish, of course. If you don't want to, then you don't have to. And then this affords you the opportunity to get quotations from all of the banks back to say they approve your deal and this is the interest rate that they will quote you. So that's by far the most convenient way of applying for car finance. But if you can also go directly to all of the banks. It just means that you need to fill in 4 applications and send it to 4 banks, which is a little bit more cumbersome.
Yeah, and I hear a lot of paperwork is necessary when you're applying. Sheila George on Facebook asks, what documents does she need to apply for a new car, and why are these documents so important?
Well, I don't think there's so much documents involved, but you obviously need a proof of identity. So you need your SA ID. You obviously need a driver's license. You can't insure a car if you don't have a driver's license. Then, because of changes to the National Credit Act, we now require 3 months of salary slips, pay slips. Mm-hmm. And then we used to require 3 months of bank statements as well. But there's been a recent development from a technological perspective, and there's a new system called interbank document exchange. So if the client gives us permission, then we are able to electronically just go to all of the other banks and then draw your statements on your behalf. But you need to give us the consent. We can't just go into your bank account. Okay. So the reason for all of this is because of legislation. The FICA Act requires us to identify that the person that we are doing business with really is who that person say they are, because identity theft is becoming more and more prevalent. So we need to protect our customers. And then also the National Credit Act requires us to make sure that if someone is applying for finance, that he can actually he can afford it. So that's why we need to assess the income and the expenses of any person applying for finance. And
also, talking about affording and being able to get the car that you want. We all want that latest car, the most stylish car. But Vuyo actually asked such an important question. Vuyo Matsaya on Twitter says, how much should I be earning to qualify for car finance?
Yeah, so there's no more a minimum amount that you need to earn. It's all about your disposable income, okay? So that means if you have a salary of 15,000 and after tax you earn 10,000 Rand, then it's easy to break it down this way. So you've got 10,000 Rand after you've paid your taxes, then you take off all of your deductions, your bond, your insurances, and all of these things. And say, for example, there's 5,000 Rand left. Then of that 5,000 Rand that's left, you need to be able to afford the installment of the car, insurance, maintenance, and fuel. Okay, so the way that we try and advise our customers is to, of that 5,000 Rand, to allocate half for the installment of the car, and then the other half for the other costs associated to owning and driving a car.
All right. And then what advice can you give car buyers applying for a car loan for the very, very first time?
I think from an early age, you need to understand how important your credit record is, your credit history, and to maintain a very good credit history. So if you have a clothing account, you must always make your payments on time and pay the minimum amount. Also, you need to start saving for a car deposit. I think it's always better to buy a car or a house or whatever with a deposit. So the bigger deposit you pay, then that's a big chunk of the car that's been paid for. The less you need to finance, and the less you need to finance, the less interest you'll have to pay at the end of the term. So also, you need to buy a car that's fit for purpose, and don't be, if you can't afford the car that you want to have, rather buy the car that you need to have. So maybe buy something cheaper or a used car. You don't have to be, you shouldn't be embarrassed with your car. Rather pay for a cheaper car than have a more expensive car that you can't afford. And then you have to adjust your lifestyle because you've bought a car. I think that's the most important points that I'd like to point out.
That's amazing. Well, applying for car finance sounds very, very easy. I think, once you know. So, Rudolph from WesBank, thank you very, very much. We appreciate your time. And I've learned a new thing or two. Thank you so much for those NCA changes. I think no one was aware.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
When did they come into play? Has it been a couple of months or years?
No, it's actually just been, I think, the second month now. So it was 2 months ago that the amendments were made.
Fantastic. Well, Rudolph, thank you so very much. Now you know exactly what to do when you go to the dealer or the bank when you apply. Next week, we'll be teaching you how to structure your car loan. So make sure you send your WesBank how-to questions to WesBank's Asset Finance Facebook page or at WesBank on Twitter. We may just be asking your questions live on air next time. It's 11:47.